Well, this is Betting Weekly Extra Time, European edition. You're with myself, Dan Roebuck, senior handicapper. Steve Wyss is alongside me, as are Daniele Fisichella and James Eastham. Steve, business end of the season. Just one match day left in Germany and France, 2 in Spain and Italy. Always key for bettors to know if teams need points for European qualification or to avoid the drops, so on and so forth. We're going to cover the state of play in 3 of the 4 major leagues. With games in Spain tonight, we'll leave La Liga until next week. But Steve, you are tasked with telling us what the situation is in the Bundesliga.
Well, good day to you all. And this is, the crunch stage of the season now. The last round's coming up in France and Germany, and of course, Premier League as well. And in terms of Germany, there's actually quite a lot at stake. There's only a few teams that we know exactly where they're going to finish. You're talking like Darmstadt, Bayer Leverkusen, Leipzig, Dortmund, although Leverkusen obviously going for the invincible campaign. A lot of teams still need points to avoid the either relegation or the playoff. And because if Dortmund win the Champions League, the 6th place team in Germany will be qualifying for the Champions League, which will then push potentially 9th place into a European spot if Leverkusen win the German Cup against second tier Kaiserslautern, I do believe it is. So, but basically, pretty much everyone apart from say Mönchengladbach in the bottom half have something at stake. It's kind of crazy, but you've got to do your homework ahead of these final rounds for whatever reason. Prize money, I don't think really comes into it in the Bundesliga as much as say Premier League, 3.2 million for every spot that you earn higher, but that's not the case in Germany.
Interesting. Yeah, lots to consider German last day. Not as clear-cut as it sounds. It probably is, though, James, in France, isn't it?
Yes, we've got very little at stake on the final day this weekend, Dan. PSG are champions. The top 4 positions are decided, not the order, but who are the top 4. And relegation is pretty much decided as well. It would take some crazy swings of goal difference for any change there. We pretty much know who's down and who's in the relegation playoff place. So really this weekend, got a couple of European positions still up for grabs that we're fighting for, and that is about it.
Yeah, interesting in France, isn't it? With Nice's defeat at the hands of Paris Saint-Germain last night. They can't qualify for the Champions League, but they are in the Europa League for sure. Daniele, we've got 2 more weeks, obviously, of Serie A. And we know that it was complicated anyway, and I guess nothing has really changed too much. Is the picture any clearer? What can you tell us for teams that have got something to play for, those that we have to avoid or nothing to play for? What do you think?
Up to 6 teams can qualify for next season. Champions League, if Atalanta beat Leverkusen and they don't finish in the top 4, so even Lazio and Fiorentina could still finish in the Champions League places. Europa League, Roma and Lazio at the moment. If Lazio wins and Fiorentina loses, they secure Europa League qualification. Conference League, Fiorentina, Napoli, and Torino all in contention. That gets a little bit more complicated, but up to 9 teams can go to European competition if Fiorentina beat Olympiacos in 29 of May. And then the relegation, 6 teams in 5 points. Sassuolo could go down this weekend if they lose and Frosinone and Empoli win. Verona could be saved on Monday in Salerno with a point, depending on a lot of permutations.
I'm glad I asked those questions at the top of the show. Clear as mud for me. Play it back. Make sure you know which teams have got something to play for and which haven't. And it sounds like certainly in Germany and Italy, plenty have. It's always worth factoring it in when it comes to your plays this week. Over 5% return on investment since late February with a current lineup. Another winning week last week. Pack show this week. We've got 1 or 2 extra sections for you. We've got 2 you play as per usual, a couple of 1-unit plays as well. We've got a hot dog. We've got a favourite that the boys will be fading each. And we have an official parlay from each of our handicappers. Half point down for us to try and boost the returns with 2 shows to go. Steve, as per usual, you are first up when it comes to the 2-unit plays. We start in Spain, Villarreal versus Real Madrid. This is 1 p.m. Sunday Eastern. Villarreal plus 240, Real Madrid minus 107, so just a shade shorter than even money. Showing no signs of stopping. They're still scoring goals. They are still winning matches, even though La Liga is done.
Yeah, now this is actually a rarity, isn't it? A Real Madrid match in a pick on this show. I think even when we had Rory on the show, he didn't involve them too often. And top billing as well for Real Madrid. So I think I mentioned on one of the Champions League shows, like, why does nobody ever pick Real Madrid on our shows or even get involved in their games? And well, I'm actually going to do it now. I'm going to take the goals. Over 3.25 goals, Villarreal against Real Madrid is my 2-unit play at -121. Getting a half loss if we get exactly 3 goals here. But this won't come as a surprise to regular viewers. Villarreal have been my kind of wagon team, my go-to team. 4 goals this year. They have the most overs in La Liga. They play one way, really, very open, especially since Marcelino came back into the club. They actually come into the match on the back of a 1-0 win against Girona, a game which caught a lot of bettors out. I saw a lot of people moaning about this game. Everyone was on the goals in midweek. And I'm kind of pleased, actually, that's happened, because by law of averages, they're going to have an under every now and then, aren't they? But that makes me even more confident they're going to be back on the goal-scoring trail. This is a really interesting game. Real Madrid, like you said, are just showing no signs of slowing down whatsoever. And I think the manager wants them to be primed for the Champions League final, stay sharp, keep players in form. This just feels like it's going to be a really offensive game. The previous meeting was 4-1. There's a couple of 3-2s in recent times as well. We've also got, and I'll be mentioning this more in the hot dog later, we've got a couple of players in the mix for the Pichichi Award, the top goal scorer in Spain, which is quite a big deal over there. So, yeah, everything's pointing towards the goals that I just don't see this being a damp squib or anything. We were actually in the middle of a Spanish round at the time of recording, but we know the results from these two teams. They're going to have, more of a longer time to recover for this game. It should be high octane, high tempo. And I'm seeing, at very worst, 3 goals for the half loss. But this could end something like 3-2 to someone. And I'm really expecting an entertaining game. Over 3.25 goals at -121.
Yeah, Rory Barlow, our Spanish correspondent, busiest man in Madrid, has suggested, I think, on Twitter that Villarreal might be a team to follow next season. It'd be interesting to see how they go and what sort of business they might or might not do over the course of the summer. But back-to-back wins coming into this one, and goals are predicted. And Steve has alluded to the fact that Hot Dog is involved as well with this one. We'll get to it shortly. Let's get to France for the first time. James has been in good form for us. Lens Montpellier to tackle first. All the games 3 p.m. Eastern in Liga on Sunday. It is the final weekend of fixtures. Lens are short price favourites, -210. Montpellier +480. Draw +380 here. Montpellier, I think, James, are done. Lens will know a win almost certainly secures European football. Maybe a small matter of goal difference, but talk us through this one in your play.
Yeah, so I said at the top of the show there, Dan, obviously there aren't that many issues still to be decided in League One. This is a game where there is an issue to be decided to do with Lens, who are chasing a European place, against a Montpellier side with nothing to play for. So it's one of the games in League One where you have a clear difference in motivation. And that is why I'm picking Lens to win this game on the Asian handicap, -1 at -130. So to start with Lens, Dan, yes, they're in the Champions League positions at the moment. The European positions at the moment. They're 6th in the table. Very simple for them. If they win, unless there's something crazy with the goal difference, they qualify for Europe. They're going to go all out here to get the win to ensure that they get into Europe. Montpellier, nothing to play for. We opposed them last weekend against Monaco. They lost 2-0, completely shut down for the season now. Their best player, Tedji Savanier, their playmaker, who was suspended last weekend. He's suspended again this weekend. However you look at this game, there's no reason to suspect that Montpellier are going to have the quality or the motivation to stop Lens getting the win they need to get into Europe. So with this Asian handicap pick, the way to look at it is, well, okay, if Lens win by a single goal, you get your stakes back. If they go on and win by 2 or more goals, then you're going to make a profit. And it's one of those where it feels like a safety net, because it's very, very hard to see how Lens don't win the game. If they win just by the 1 goal, well, you're not going to lose out. So clearly my 2-unit pick for the week. When I look through all the fixtures in League One, this is a standout because of that big difference in motivation. So yeah, very strongly on Lens this weekend to win. Asian handicap, -1 goal start at -130.
Let's get to Serie A and Daniele's first pick. It's a 2-unit play, and it features 2 sides scrapping to avoid the drop here. 6:30 a.m. Sunday Eastern, Sassuolo against Cagliari. Sassuolo, the favourites, plus 125. Cagliari, plus 210 here. Draw, plus 250. It's 19th hosting 16th, Daniele. So a massive game in the context of the fight against relegation.
If Cagliari win and both Frosinone and Empoli lose, they are safe. If Sassuolo doesn't beat Cagliari, they need to hope Frosinone loses, otherwise they'll be in big trouble. Sassuolo have lost 31 points this season from an advantage position, more than any other team in Serie A. They're mentally fragile. They probably were not prepared to play in the relegation battle, and they're without the main man, Berardi. But on home form, Sassuolo will be saved. They beat Inter twice. They beat Juventus, of course, but have conceded 32 times at the Mapei, second worst home defense, only 2 wins in 2024. But Cagliari away from home, they're not better. Only 1 away win, 1-0 at Empoli, only kept 2 clean sheets, conceded 10 in the last 3 road games. They were against Inter, Genoa, and Milan, has to be said, but always conceded Cagliari against the teams fighting for relegation away from home. Apart from Empoli, they average 2 goals conceded per game on the road. This is a high percentage both team to score. 67% of Cagliari games have finished both team to score yes. 61% of Sassuolo games have finished both team to score yes. The odds are not amazing. Could you trust Sassuolo at home? I can't. I think Cagliari, at least they're going to get a point. Asian handicap plus 0.5 for Cagliari is minus 141.
It's an interesting point you make about Sassuolo, because we've talked over the last couple of years, Danny, about the fact that they start really well in seasons and then they can take their foot off the gas and it doesn't really matter. They're not used to this sort of battle, are they?
No, they're not used to that sort of battle. They're a team built for different things. They're a team with the players. Yes, they've never been involved in relegation scraps. They've changed the manager. They brought in a salvation specialist at Ballardini. It kind of half worked. But yes, it's a very difficult place, really, to get even the crowd going. They play in an almost desert stadium, so you can't imagine it's going to be a huge atmosphere at the Mapei. By the way, the last game for Sassuolo is away at Lazio. I think they look doomed. It's going to be the first relegation since they got up 12, 13 years ago.
Going to be an interesting game. We like Cagliari. We're basically fading the favourite in terms of Sassuolo. Cagliari plus half a goal, minus 141. That's the 2-unit play for Daniele. Man in form when it comes to the hot dogs is, of course, James Eastham, whose shot on target parlay hit again last week. We've had a treble. We've had a double. This time around, James, we're going for a single. We're going in again, obviously, in Liga. This time, just a solitary player that we need to strike one on target for us. Tell us the game and the player. What's your reasoning here?
Yes, the player is Aurel Mangala of Lyon. The game is Lyon versus Strasbourg, and Mangala is plus 210 to have a shot on target. Just over 0.5 shots on target is the market. So just needs 1 shot on target and you make a profit. So the reasoning here, there's 2 things. Number one is Lyon have something to go for here. They're trying to get into Europe. They still have the French Cup final to come, which is another route into Europe, but they're going to want to try and do it through the league if they can. So we're going to see a motivated performance here from Lyon. They haven't taken the foot off the gas at all. They've been playing through the tape in all their games, trying to get wins. So it should be a good performance. And the second factor is I just think Mangala is overpriced given how he plays for this Lyon side. So if you look at Mangala's career, he's not a prolific goal scorer, doesn't always get into scoring positions. But actually the way that Lyon's set up in midfield with a 4-3-3, Nemanja Matic, the former Man United Chelsea player, is the holding midfielder. It means that when Mangala plays, he does have more freedom here than he's had in other clubs where he's played to get forward. Now, we saw that last weekend. He scored the winning goal for Lyon last weekend against Clermont. They won 1-0, got into an advanced position early in the second half to get that goal. I just feel that if he plays here with Lyon going for the win at home against a Strasbourg side with nothing to play for, he's going to get into scoring positions again. So the plus 210 on him, given how this team is set up and his role in it, looks too big to me. Now, I should say he's not a guaranteed starter. I think if everybody's fit and it's a big game, he's actually the reserve to Corentin Tolisso in the Lyon midfield as things stand. So he might not start, but if he doesn't start, then you're going to get your stakes back and it'll be a void bet. So there's nothing to worry about there. If he does start, as I say, I think the value here Actually, in all the markets, in all the games on this market this weekend, I think he is the value pick. So if he does start, I think you're going to get a really good run for your money at these odds. That's Mangala to have over 0.5 shots on target for Lyon at plus 210.
Because you've been informed and because some of the players that you tip up have been cut in price, is this another one that you might expect to get a little bit shorter? And if so, what would you say is the lowest price that you go? Or would you expect that he probably won't get cut because of his position and what you've just mentioned in terms of starting and so on?
Yeah, I would expect him to stay actually at this price, Dan, rather than get cut. If he were to get cut, honestly, I would go down to about plus 170. But because he's not a regular starter, because he's a midfielder, I think he will hold. Looking through all the prices on the games this weekend, I think some of the players we have backed in recent weeks have been cut quite dramatically. Julian Ponceau now, one of our favourites at Lorient. I think he's into plus 130 now. We were backing him at plus 200 a few weeks ago. So some players have been cut, but I think Mangala will probably be held.
Yeah, the market isn't stupid. You've got to try and mix it up over the course of the season. Some players will get too short and they'll drift back out again. You've got to be canny. Those who are on Jude Bellingham to score goals at the start of the season have been canny. I know that our futures picks for Spain, Rory put up, was it around about even money, Steve, or maybe a little bit bigger to get over 6? Was it over 6 or over 7? I can't remember what he was now.
I think it was over 6.5. Yeah, one of the picks of the season.
Just unbelievable. I mean, he has got, what's he got? 19. And as you mentioned, he's going for Golden Boot in Spain, Steve, and he's featuring in your hot dog.
Yeah, my search for a hot dog winner still continues, although I did have a half loser last week, kind of a fortunate one in a way. So I feel like maybe my momentum is back upwards. But do you know what, Dan? I'm sick and tired of putting my faith in teams for this hot dog. I'm going to go down James's route here and rely on an individual player to get the job done for me. And Jude Bellingham to score at any time is currently actually plus 188 with BetRivers. Now, that is a sort of price. It can fluctuate a bit. And I think anything sort of over plus 150 or more is a good price on Bellingham. I've mentioned about the game. I think there's going to be a lot of goals in it. Villarreal's defence will give you plenty of chances. Bellingham will get opportunities. As long as he starts, obviously, if he doesn't start, this bet will be void. It's the BetRivers rules. But look, he's going for this Golden Boot, the Pichichi Award. And this is a big deal. When you think about it, Kylian Mbappe is going to be coming into this league. In the next 5 years, who else is going to win this? Do you know what I mean? This is quite a prestigious award. Now, the last time that a non-Barcelona or Real Madrid player won this award was 2012. Sorry, 2009, in fact, actually, Dan. Sorry. You can guess who that was. Then I really will give you a pat on the back.
Falcao.
Falcao? James said Falcao. No?
Diego Forlan.
Diego Forlan.
For Atletico de Madrid. And Forlan also won it in 2005 with Villarreal, by the way. Now, this match, there's two players in the mixer for the Golden Boot. Alexander Sherlock as well, who's actually become one of my favourite strikers. I think he's a really underrated finisher. I nearly went crazy here and had the double. Sherlock and Bellingham as my hot dog. There's a double, plus 650. Nearly went absolutely crazy, but I thought, let's just stick with Bellingham because he is far more reliable. 19 goals in the league. Rory pointed out at the start of the season, he's played in that far more advanced role for his club. And, he's in fantastic form. So plus 188, I think, is a really big price for my hot dog here. Bellingham, he's a smart player as well. He knows it's probably his best and only chance maybe to ever win this award. He'll want to take it down. Maybe he can wrestle penalty duty away from someone as well. I don't know. But, I really like Bellingham in this matchup against quite a soft defence.
1 p.m. Sunday, the Real Madrid game, as we might have mentioned before. 2:45 Saturday for Torino against AC Milan. And Daniele, you've got a little creative here with your hot dog play.
I went for halftime tie and total goals under 2.5, which pushes to up 180. Now, Torino, they haven't conceded a goal in 30 first halves in Serie A. That's the record. And the last 8 home games for Torino have finished 0-0 at halftime. But they play Milan, whose 72% of away games have ended with both teams to score. Yes, away games for AC Milan, second best attack away from home. but only 5 teams have conceded more goals than them on the road. 29 goals conceded for Milan. There is more at stake for Torino for sure in this game than for Milan, because Torino can still finish 9th and will play in the Conference League next season. It means perhaps much more to them than to the likes of Fiorentina and Napoli. Of course, Torino last game is Atalanta. Milan, they've done the job at home against Cagliari. They know they're going to finish second. They're going to have a new manager next season. They're going to have a new center forward, as Giroud has already signed with an MLS club. So it's a lot of changes there. But it's very hard to beat against Milan, really. Only 1 defeat in the last 13. Only failed to score once away from home in the 0-0 against Juventus. Torino, on the other hand, they got the second worst attack at home. Only 15 goals scored, kept 8 clean sheets in the last 9. So is it going to be more of a Milan game or a more a Torino game? I'm going with the home side here, and I think it's going to be a classic Torino game. Halftime, tie, and total goals under 2.5 plus 180.
Those are the big price picks. When it comes to the hot dogs, we've got parlays that are even bigger a little later on the show. Let's get a few more one-unit plays, though. Stuttgart, Gladbach next for Steve. 2:30 Saturday in Germany, 2:30 Eastern in the United States. Sorry, let's get that right. It's 9:30 Eastern, the United States, 2:30 at the UK. So what's that? 3:30 Germany. Getting me times wrong here, Steve. Talk us through this one, because to my mind, there's not a lot on it, I don't think, is there? Stuttgart minus 360, Gladbach plus 800. And you've gone for the lesser spotted first half Asian handicap play.
Yeah, the actual bet is going to be on Stuttgart first half Asian handicap. Minus 0.75 at minus 118. Now, for those who can't get on that, then you could just back Stuttgart to be winning at half time. It's around about minus 175. I nearly had that as my 2-unit play, actually. I just think this game, you say there's not a lot on it. Stuttgart could still finish second, which that would be quite a big deal for them. It would be a massive deal for them, in fact. So they're going to be. This has been a train that's just not stopped all season. They're one of the best coach sides in Europe, one of the best teams to watch in Europe. I'm really interested to see what happens to their manager. I think he could go right the way to the top here against a Gladbach side who they're finally safe. They've really struggled in the last couple of months. I think only 1 win in that period. They've just got over the line now after a draw last week, and they have nothing to play for really at all. They're safe, and I think they put a lot of effort into being safe. And I think this could be a match where they're not on the beach as such, but just kind of relieved that it's all over and they want it over and done with. And this is just a horrible trip against a Stuttgart side who just score goals for fun. In the words of sort of Simon Holden, I think this could be a Sergeant Slaughter. I think this could be 5 or 6-0, honestly, Dan. And I wanted to get with Stuttgart in some sort of fashion. The goal line is 4, and the Asian handicap line is -2. And I just can't stomach big lines like that. So I got creative, and I thought we'll go first half. They have the 3rd most wins at halftime of any team in Bundesliga, 15 times. That'll do for me. They often come out the traps quickly. And, I'll be looking at someone like Garassi to score and everything here. But this could be potentially a big beating. But I'd rather take them first half, because sometimes last day of the season, when the job's done in the second half, teams just sort of ease off a bit, enjoy themselves, bring on the subs, get the crowd involved. This could be done by halftime, say 3-0 at halftime, and it stays that way, sort of thing. So that's why I'd rather get involved in the first half Asian handicap. But I think Stuttgart do take a big win to finish the season.
At 9:30 Eastern, let's get the timings right at least. Hopefully Steve's selection will go in as well. Daniele's second pick is at Stadio Olimpico on Sunday. It's the main game. Sunday night, Italy, 2:45 Eastern. Roma -195. Genoa +540. Draw +325 here. Roma, are they short of a conference place at least? Daniele, outside chance of Champions League? That's how I'm reading it. Is that right?
Yeah, they are sure of a conference place, likely a Europa League place. They need to finish above Lazio, but they can finish as low as 8 because Fiorentina still have a game in hand with Atalanta, which, by the way, is going to be played on the 3rd of June. You can imagine what kind of rhythm and pace that game is going to have. Atalanta basically can choose to finish 3rd, 4th, 5th. I mean, doesn't quite make sense, but, if Atalanta wins, of course, the Europa League, it doesn't finish in the top 4. 6 still qualifies for Champions League. So Roma just as slim chance to make it. They've slowed down a lot in the last period, only 1 win in the last 5. They still have the second best attack at home with 37 goals scored. And since September, they only lost 2 home games against Inter and Bologna. But careful with Genoa, probably one of the darkest horses of Serie A. They've been saved for at least 5 or 6 games, but they kept going. Only 1 defeat in the last 8. 46 points in the table is a record since 2015. And they only lost 1 away game in the last 10, and that was 2-1 against Inter. Only failed to score once in the last 5 games on the road, and drew recently with Milan, Juve, Napoli, Bologna. They don't get trashed, Genoa, on the road. They only lost by more than 1 goal margin just once, 2-0 against Atalanta at the beginning of the season. On the other hand, they only kept 3 away clean sheets, which suggests normally they score, they let goals in, and I think if Roma wins this one, unlikely is going to be a win 2-0. Both teams to score, yes, plus 105.
Yeah, plus money pick like that one. Both teams to score, yes. Roma against Genoa. James, we go to Lyon, Strasbourg here. Again, 3 p.m. Sunday. Lyon, short price favourites, minus 250. Strasbourg, plus 600. Draw just over 4-1. Lyon will be checking out what Lens are doing here. Strasbourg, nothing to play for. Talk us through this one.
Yeah, this is very similar to the Lens pick, Dan, in that you've got a home team in Lyon who are chasing a European place against an away team here in Strasbourg who are already sure to finish in mid-table and have got nothing to play for. So the pick is exactly the same as the Lens game. It's Lyon on the Asian handicap with a minus 1 goal start. Short odds, it's minus 159. Maybe too short for some people, but on the final weekend when there's not that many games with something at stake, I was happy to go with a shorter price because I do think it's still a good pick here. And yeah, it's as simple as that really. Lyon have to go for the win here, and then they'll be hoping they can overturn the massive goal difference advantage that Lens have got over them. The 2 teams are on the same number of points. Is that likely to happen? Well, it's probably not, but they'll just want to make sure they uphold their side of the bargain by getting the win. And Strasbourg, for me, Dan, their season really finished last weekend. They had a derby match last weekend against Metz. They got a couple of late goals to win it out of nowhere, and celebrated, as you'd expect, with an unexpected derby win. But before that, they hadn't been in great form. They've lost 3 of their last 4. They were already on the beach. I think after that derby win last week, they'll have been on the beach all week. I can't see any reason why Strasbourg will be motivated enough to stop Lyon here getting the win that Lyon will be looking for. So yeah, just like the 2-unit pick, it's a big difference in motivation on this game, which is the main factor. You've got a home team who are really going for it, an away team you've got nothing to play for. So that's the pick. It's Lyon, minus 1 on the Asian handicap at minus 159.
A new section. We like to introduce new sections with only 2 shows to go of the season. That's how we roll. This is where our cappers are looking to fade a favourite to bet against a team that we think is not good value to win. So we aim to play the double chance market, side with their opponents with a tie, the draw if you like, and also the opposition to win. So we've got both results on our side. Give us your fades, incidentally, in the YouTube section. If you fancy a favourite might get beat, then let us know. We'll take a look, as we always do. Always get some good engagement on our YouTube channel. So 3 favourites to fade here from the boys. We've got 2 in France, 1 in Italy. Steve, you are first up here, and you're fading the champions.
Yeah, my fade of the week is PSG. They are minus 182 with BetRivers to beat Metz away. And I think that's a terrible price because there's nothing on this game for them now. They've won the league. They are looking ahead to the French Cup final next week. The manager's not going to take any risk with any players that are injured. Their focus is going to be elsewhere. There's no way I would back PSG at minus 182 here. And I certainly, on the Asian handicap's minus 1. No way would I get involved in that at all. We know the line. They actually surprisingly won on Wednesday night. I didn't expect that. The lineup was a bit weak, but they were a bit lucky to beat Nice. I thought Nice missed chances, as they always do. But let's also look at the other side here. Metz is still fighting. They still need a point to get in the relegation playoff, because Lorient are only 7 goals behind them on the goal difference. Now, it's not inconceivable. They could smash Clermont they could win 5 or 6 against Clermont. I'm interested to hear James's correct score prediction on that match at the end of the show. So Metz are going to be absolutely fighting tooth and nail here. They give it absolutely everything. They need that point to get them into the playoff, and they would back themselves in that playoff as well. So, yeah, minus 182. That just doesn't ring right with me, Dan. In the last game of the season on PSG, it could be a really weak inside. I think they'll kick off possibly around minus 140, minus 150 when we see the 11. So definitely a strong fade for me. PSG not to win this game.
Yeah, double chance Metz is plus 145, round about that sort of mark at the moment. And just on that, on Paris Saint-Germain, Steve, I mean, I noticed last night there was quite a few young players that have come in. There was more on the bench. Do you think it could be a real young team for this one?
Yeah, it frustrated me. I did actually bet against them myself last night, and it made logical sense. All the metrics, and if you watch that game, Nice probably certainly deserved at least a draw. It's not terrible. The PSG sort of reserves, if you know what I mean. They're still not terrible, but it is quite a big drop off compared to that. But also, I think the intensity and the mentality of them, could be a lot lower at the last game of the season. They actually have a history of struggling in this last game. Clermont beat them at home last year. I think Brest got a result against them a few years ago as well. They're not known for finishing the season that strongly when they win the title.
Let's get to Italy. 12:30 Monday for this one. Daniele, you are fading Verona at Salernitana Monday night locally. Talk us through this.
The last team that the Salernitana has beaten in Serie A, it's Verona on 30th of December. Since then, 4 defeats, 1 draw, 3 defeats, 1 draw, 3 defeats, 1 draw, 4 defeats, 1 draw. And if you wonder if you by mistake have hit the loop button in your tape, no, this is exactly the streak they had. They never had 2 consecutive positive results in a row since the 3rd of December. So maybe by law of average, they are due one. It's very difficult to guess what they should have done, what they could have done next, but it's remarkable that they're scoring 4 of the last 6 for a team that they knew they were going to go down to Serie B. Against the team, the fellow strugglers, Udinese, Frosinone, Cagliari, and Sassuolo at home, Salernitana have always scored and they've always got points. Both teams to score. Verona have only won 2 home games away from home, both in lucky circumstances against Empoli and Lecce, both 1-0. I think they could even be saved with a point, because if Sassuolo, Frosinone, and Empoli fail to win, Verona just need a point on Monday to be saved, and they have a massive advantage playing 24 hours, 48 hours after. I go for Salernitana or tie plus 102.
So we're fading Verona, Salernitana to get something from the game, plus money, plus 102, and just shy of even money for James's selection here. James, you're fading Brest at Toulouse.
Yes, I'm backing Toulouse or tie minus 105 at home to Brest. Brest do have something to play for, Dan. It's important to point that out. They're sure already have been in the top 4, but they'll want to get in the top 3 because that means you get direct entry into the Champions League group stage. They're tied on points with Lille, who are 3rd. And the goal difference is really close. There's only 2 goals difference in the goal difference. So there's everything to play for Brest. They want to win the game and try to outscore or out goal difference Lille in their game. However, despite that motivational factor, I'm happy to back Toulouse here, even though Toulouse are a mid-table side with nothing to play for. It's really less than the motivation. It's to do with form, actually, because Toulouse are the mid-table side in League One. You've actually shown some pretty good form recently and some pretty good motivation for its own sake. We saw them beat Paris Saint-Germain last weekend, and they played well in a couple of other games. And Brest recently, despite having something to play for, they haven't actually played that well. Steve's been saying for weeks now that Brest were bound to hit a sticky patch at some point because they're just not as good as their league position had suggested when they were 2nd in the table. And that's exactly what we've seen recently from Brest. They've only won 1 of their last 5. They've got some real team news problems this weekend as well, with some big players missing for them. They become a really ordinary side in midfield without Pierre Lise-Malou, who is missing this weekend. He's one of the Player of the Year. Was one of the Player of the Year nominations in League One. So there is motivation. That definitely favours Brest, but I think everything else about this game actually favours Toulouse. And I think, yeah, close to evens, minus 105 on both to lose, to win, and also the draw. For me, it was too good to overlook. So I'm happy here, even though Brest have got plenty to play for, to oppose them in this market.
Just one, Steve, strategy question for those that like to fade favourites here. Are your eyes immediately drawn to short price favourites away from home that you'd like to fade? Is that your sort of first point of call when you're looking to fade favourites, do you think?
Not always. I think there's a spot to fade someone in any sort of spot, but I generally don't like backing sides as a heavy odds on away from home. That's just kind of the way I've been brought up in betting, really. And I guess statistically, there always will be less away wins, won't there? This is the way it is. So yeah, I think you've got a point there, Dan.
We will continue with fading favourites next week and next season. That's if we're invited back, of course. We've had, don't know how many picks we've had already, something like 12. But you want some more, don't you? So let's get some extra picks from the boys. We've got some parlays to come as well, and then a rapid fire correct score round that somehow has been squeezed into the running order. Extra picks first up, Steve. You go to Germany. Again, 9:30 this Eastern time. It's Union Berlin versus Freiburg. What's the play?
I'm going under 2.5 goals here, Dan, at minus 118. I think this is a really intriguing fixture. And I mean, last week, Union Berlin were 2-0 up against Cologne. A Cologne side who've hardly scored a goal all season, that must be added. They somehow conceded 3 goals in the second half, including 2 late on. But that's kept Cologne in the race to stay up. And Union Berlin are really sweating. They are sweating like a pig in a butcher's shop at this point in time. They need a point to avoid automatic relegation. They kind of don't know whether to stick or twist here, because if they win the game, they could survive completely, depending on the results of Mainz and Bochum. But I believe Mainz and Bochum will get the point they need each to survive. So I think they take a draw here, guarantee themselves the playoff spot. They'll play against Dusseldorf, who I think have had a very good season in Bundesliga too. But Union Berlin would back themselves in that. Freiburg, I mean, half the Bundesliga is going to be in Europe next season, potentially. 1 point for Freiburg would guarantee them Europe as long as Leverkusen win the German Cup, which, let's be honest, that's going to happen, isn't it? It should happen. So I don't think a draw is a terrible result for Freiburg either. Same for them. They could win the game and get themselves into 7th spot. But I think this is going to be a really tetchy game. No one's going to want to, take too many risks early on. I think any risks that come could potentially be later in the game, only if there's a goal. But this could go all the way 0-0. Right, lights to flag 0-0, because I think ultimately it does suit both sides. They're going to be looking at results elsewhere as well. That could affect the game. And the pressure might actually go off potentially for both of them as well. But Union Berlin are going to be very careful here. If they lose the game, they could go down. I mean, we want Cologne to go down because RJ's got an outright on. We'll cash out plus 6 units on RJ's outright. Cologne to be relegated at the start of the season, which it looked in the bag last week. So you just got to wait a bit longer. But I think under 2.5 is a good shout here. Neither side are particularly high scoring either.
Unders then for the Union Berlin-Freiburg game at 9 a.m. Sunday for Daniele and the Serie A extra play here. Monza Frosinone, we're focusing on Daniele.
Over 2.5 goals and both teams to score. No wins in 7 for Monza, but they haven't given up. They score in all the last 4 and score in 8 of the last 9 games at home. Actually, they only failed to score 3 times in front of their fans. Frosinone lost 5-0 to Inter, but very unlucky not to score at least once against the champions. Hit the bar, a goal save of the line. A very unbalanced team. 10 best attack in Serie A, 3rd worst defense for Frosinone, never won away from home. Can they do it in the very last game of the season? Because then the last game at home, is the 6-pointer against Udinese. Frosinone cannot mathematically be saved this weekend, so it will go down to the last game regardless. Over 2.5 goals, both to score, minus 112.
And James, last pick for you. This is, you gave us this selection before Marseille played last night, and you're still happy to stick with it.
Yes, happy to stick with it. I'm back in Marseille here to win away to Le Havre at minus 112. Marseille lost the game you're referring to there, Dan, against Reims in midweek, which makes it harder for Marseille now to get into Europe, but they can still get into Europe. They're 3 points behind the European positions going into this weekend's games. But if they were to win and either Lens or Lyon, the two teams above them, were to lose, then they would move into Europe, so into the European places. So there's still everything for Marseille to play for. It's just their chances of doing it have got a lot bigger. So I think they'll be fully motivated, and they're a better team than Le Havre. Le Havre at the bottom of the table. They can still, well, arithmetically speaking, they can be relegated, but they're 3 points above the relegation playoff position, are Le Havre, with a massively superior goal difference to the team in that relegation playoff position, which is Metz. So it would take two extraordinary results in the Le Havre and the Metz games for them to be relegated. They're almost safe. So even if they lose by a couple of goals, it won't really make any difference. I think there will be a slight motivation difference. Le Havre will take it seriously, but Marseille have got more to play for. And they played well recently. I thought, they lost against Reims. That is a blow, but they've generally been pretty good recently. So I can see them winning here. It's close to evens. I was happy to take this price, minus 112.
Now, something we don't usually do, but we've been inundated with requests for what are you smirking for, Steve? Inundated with requests for parlays. So here we go, and this is in no way designed to try and get our P&L into plus figures for the season. We'll leave that for next week when we'll be doing a few Hail Marys to try and get us into plus figures. We've got 3 parlays from the boys. We've got 3-team parlay from Steve. We've got 3 from Danny. We've got 4-fold from James here. Steve, rattle through this one for us. You've got 2 teams in Spain, 2 teams in France, 1 in Spain. Got to get your parlay down 1 p.m. Sunday.
Yeah, these are official plays, aren't they? Half a unit.
Yes, half unit pick.
Parlays.
These are on the Excel spreadsheet. Don't worry.
I've kept it simple. I'm going with 3 teams on the money line. Lyon to beat Strasbourg, Lille to beat Nice, and Cadiz to beat Las Palmas. Lyon, James said everything that needs to be said about that. They will get the job done against Strasbourg. Lille are facing a Nice side now, got nothing to play for, heart ripped out of them after losing against PSG in midweek. And Lille need to win to make sure they finish 3rd, which is automatic qualification to the Champions League. They're embroiled against Brest. The goal difference might be a thing as well there. And then Cadiz in Spain, they've suddenly made this relegation battle interesting. It looked done, but they've won the last 2 games against the Las Palmas side. At the time of recording, we don't know the result of Las Palmas against Betis. But at the moment, the 8 games in a row they've lost. They've scored 1 goal since the 2nd of March. So if they lose to Betis, they are under serious pressure. If they get a win against them, they're safe. They'll be on the beach. So whatever happens, really, I quite like going against Las Palmas here. Cadiz have suddenly got the bit between their teeth, and this parlay plays plus 339 for half a unit, and I really like 3 sides on the money line there. Lyon, Lille, Las Palmas, and Cadiz all to win.
We go to Italy for Daniele's 3-team parlay here. 2:45 Saturday. Get your bets on for this one. We've got mix and match in terms of markets. Daniele.
Torino-Milan, Torino-Ortai, Sassuolo-Cagliari, both team to score, yes. Monza-Frosinone, over 2.5 goals, all games that we have analyzed previously on the podcast. Half a unit, plus 337 for this 3-leg parlay.
Great stuff. And finally, James, you've got a 4-fold for us, 4 teams, and you want both teams to score in the lot.
Yes, so we've talked a lot about how many games in League One are high scoring towards the end of the season. We're still in profit, actually, Dan, for the over 2.5 goal picks that we recommended back on match day 27 between then and the end of the season. So I'm going for a 4-fold. Yes, both teams to score. And the games are the following 4. It's Toulouse versus Brest. It's Metz versus PSG. It's Lille versus Nice, and it's Reims versus Rennes. Put those in a 4-fold, and it pays out at plus 597.
Those are the official parlays, half unit down from all of our cappers for this week. And because Steve demanded to do it, we're going to do correct scores for the Germany games that we haven't mentioned and the French games we haven't mentioned. So 7 games that we've not mentioned. Steve, are you ready? Werder Bremen.
Yeah.
Against Bochum. Thoughts? Correct score.
1-1
Are we doing correct
draw.
scores? We're doing correct scores,
Yeah.
are we? We're doing correct scores. Okay.
1-1 tie.
1-1. Werder Bremen, Bochum. Borussia Dortmund against Darmstadt.
Dortmund 7, Darmstadt 0. Darmstadt are awful. They have taken some massive beatings.
Eintracht Frankfurt against Leipzig.
Desmond, 2-2 draw.
2-2. Bayer Leverkusen against Augsburg.
Bayer Leverkusen to go unbeaten, 3-0 win.
Okay. Wolfsburg against Mainz.
0-0 draw.
Don't sound like you're making up off the cuff. Why? What was that one again? Wolfsburg.
Wolfsburg 0, Mainz 0.
Okay. Hoffenheim by München.
To watch.
This could be crazy. I'm going to go for Hoffenheim to win 3-2.
Heidenheim Köln.
Köln make it interesting by winning. 2-1 win for Köln.
Okay. James, you've covered every single game bar 2 in Ligue 1, so we want some correct scores from you in 2 fixtures. Don't know what Daniele's laughing for. He's doing Italy next week. Could be
Yes.
chaos. Monaco Nantes.
Monaco 2, Nantes 1.
And this is the one that Steve was interested in. Lorient against Clermont.
Lorient are going to win this game 4-1.
Steve?
Well, yeah, I think they can make it interesting and put a bit of pressure on Metz. So, yeah, I think that's not a bad shout, 4-1.
Okay, just rewind that. Get your correct scores down for Germany and France from the boys. We'll do Italy and Spain next week. Steve, Daniele, James, thanks for your company. Good luck to one and all. We will keep everyone updated via our X feeds. That's a wrap for Betting Weekly Extra Time European show. We're back next week. Final show of the season. Picks, plays, hot dogs, favourites to fade, and we'll get some correct scores as well from the 2 leagues to finish up. Make sure you follow us at Because We Win on X, and you can subscribe to our YouTube channel. We've got Instagram tips as well. We must be through 1,000 subscribers on Insta. I would have thought by now Nigel will be sending the T-shirts out. From all of us for now, though, it is goodbye. We'll see you next week.